The first thing the alien instructor did was try to break a human's jaw. No warning, no lecture, no diplomatic preamble about cultural exchange. Just a blur of violet chitin and serrated limbs whipping through the recycled station air toward the newest student's face. The human caught his wrist. Not fast, not frantic, just precise. The crack of impact echoed across the gravity-balance chamber, but it wasn't bone snapping. It was the instructor's joint locking in a grip that had ended bar fights from Singapore to San Antonio. The human tilted his head slightly, gray at the temples, eyes calm as a winter sea. "Sorry," he said mildly. "Did class begin?" Silence swallowed the amphitheater. 42 species watched from tiered platforms, scaled aristocrats of the Varelian Combine, cephalid scholars from the Draxan hegemony, crystalline observers of Torth. They had come to witness something historic. The first human admitted into the Imperial War College of the Zorati Dominion. Most expected comedy. The Zorati were taller than humans, layered in bioarmor, their culture forged in ritual violence. They trained officers the way other species sharpen blades, through humiliation, pain, and public dominance displays. Instructor Threxel had planned to establish hierarchy in the first second. Instead, his arm trembled in a human's grip. The human, Major Daniel Reyes, retired United Nations Expeditionary Command, tightened his fingers just enough. Cartilage creaked. Threxel hissed, bioluminescent veins flaring indigo. "You will release me," the instructor snarled in trade tongue. Reyes glanced at the other students. A six-eyed cadet leaned forward eagerly. A gelatinous being quivered with anticipation. Someone began recording. Reyes sighed. "I flew here 600 light-years," he said conversationally, "because your Dominion sent a formal apology." A murmur rippled across the chamber. "They said," Reyes continued, tightening his grip another millimeter, "that the bombing of our colony on Vega 4 was a training accident." Threxel's pupils narrowed. "That was not our fleet." "Funny," Reyes replied softly. "Your ships were the only ones with the drive signature." He leaned closer. "And I buried my niece." The room grew very, very quiet. Reyes released the wrist. Threxel stumbled back, pride bleeding through bioluminescent pores. "This is an academy," the instructor spat. "Not a tribunal." "Good," Reyes said. "Because I didn't come for justice." The hall doors sealed with a metallic boom. A holographic crest flared above them, the sigil of the Zorati Dominion, coiled and predatory. Threxel straightened, recovering composure. "You misunderstand your position, human. You are here because your species is curious, resilient. The Dominion studies potential threats." Reyes smiled faintly. "Oh, I know." He looked up at the crest. "And I study empires that make mistakes." A few of the older cadets shifted uneasily. Threxel gestured, and a gravity field snapped into place. The floor tilted 30 degrees. Atmospheric density increased. Heat rose like a forge. "Lesson 1, Threxel declared. Endurance." Several non-Zorati students collapsed instantly, their physiologies unprepared. Reyes adjusted his stance. He did not kneel. Threxel's mandibles clicked in irritation. The gravity doubled. Reyes' knees bent slightly, but he remained upright. He remembered Kandahar's thin air. The weight of a full kit in desert heat. The day he carried Corporal Ames 3 kilometers with a shattered femur. He exhaled slowly. "Is this," he asked calmly, "graded?" A hiss of laughter erupted from a reptilian cadet. Threxel increased gravity to lethal thresholds for most species. The air crackled. Bones popped in alien bodies. Reyes' boots groaned against the deck. He took one step forward. The deck plating dented beneath him. Another step. Threxel's bioluminescence flickered, confusion edging toward concern. "How?" the instructor began. Reyes reached up and grabbed the gravity emitter panel. He ripped it out of the ceiling. Sparks rained. The field collapsed. Aliens gasped, coughing, some vomiting from pressure shock. Reyes dropped the smoldering device at Threxel's feet. You train officers through dominance, Reyes said quietly. We train ours through responsibility. Threxel's eyes flared murderous red. You presume parity. No, Reyes replied. I presume you started something you don't understand. Security fields shimmered into existence along the walls. Dominion guards waited beyond. Reyes raised his hands slightly. I'm here to learn, he said. But if you strike first again. He let the sentence hang. The weight of it settled like a warship entering orbit. Threxel signaled the guards to stand down. For now, the instructor hissed. Class resumed. But every species present felt it. Something had shifted. They had expected a savage. They had found something worse. A patient one. And somewhere far from the academy, hidden beneath bureaucratic layers of apology and exchange programs, a Dominion fleet adjusted its patrol routes, unaware that a retired human major had just declared quiet war in the most dangerous classroom in the galaxy. By the third week, half the cadets refused to spar with him. It wasn't that Reyes was the strongest. It was that he adapted. The Zorati combat arenas were designed to exploit weakness. Variable atmospheres, magnetic storms, neural disruptors that scrambled lesser minds. Reyes treated each scenario like a problem set. In a methane-heavy chamber against a towering Varelian brute, he used the brute's own flammable exhalations to ignite a controlled backdraft that forced surrender. In a zero-gravity labyrinth against a Draxan assassin, he jammed a broken conduit into a rotation hub and turned the entire arena into a centrifuge of disorientation. He didn't fight like a conqueror. He fought like a man who had survived bad leadership. Threxel watched from above, irritation evolving into something colder. During a strategic simulation, the instructor projected a scenario, a rebellious outer colony. Minimal resources. Demonstrate pacification. Most cadets chose orbital bombardment. Reyes studied the data quietly. Your solution, human? Threxel demanded. Reyes folded his hands. You're assuming rebellion, he said. The hall rustled. The colony's output dropped 40%, Threxel countered. They refuse tribute. Reyes zoomed into supply logs. They're starving. He highlighted Dominion shipping routes, delayed convoys, missing medical shipments. You squeezed them during a plague, he said. Then called it insubordination. Threxel's bioluminescence pulsed defensively. The Dominion maintains order. Through fear, Reyes replied. Which works. Until it doesn't. He changed the projection. Instead of bombardment, he rerouted fleet assets to deliver aid under armed escort, replaced corrupt governors, instituted profit sharing. Short-term cost, Reyes said. Long-term loyalty. Silence. A crystalline observer vibrated softly. You propose weakness, Threxel accused. I propose stability. Threxel leaned forward. You presume to instruct us? Reyes met his gaze. I'm showing you how empires fall. A flicker passed through Threxel's eyes. Because the Vega 4 strike had not been an accident. It had been a test. A probe to measure humanity's response time. The Dominion had expected outrage. They had not expected restraint. They had not expected one aging soldier to volunteer for cultural exchange. That night, as artificial dusk dimmed the Academy's corridors, Reyes stood alone at an observation viewport. Stars stretched endless and cold. A voice spoke behind him. You are not here merely to study. Threxel. Reyes didn't turn. Neither are you. The instructor approached slowly. Your fleet movements have changed, Threxel said. Your species builds faster than projected. Reyes finally faced him. We're good under pressure. Threxel's mandibles flexed. Did you come for revenge? Reyes' eyes hardened. I came to see if you were worth saving. Threxel recoiled slightly. You threaten annihilation? No, Reyes said. I'm offering you a choice. Before Threxel could respond, alarms screamed through the academy. Red light flooded corridors. A transmission burst into the hall, Dominion High Command. An unknown fleet had breached outer defenses. Not human. Not recognized. Ships unlike any recorded, organic hulls, weapon signatures erratic and devastating. In seconds, footage showed Dominion cruisers torn apart. A new empire had arrived, and it was not interested in diplomacy. Threxel stared at the projection, bioluminescence paling. Impossible. Rhea's jaw tightened. They followed us. Threxel's eyes snapped to him. Explain. Rhea's voice was grim. Something out there wiped 2 of our deep exploration teams. We thought it was a fluke. The projection flickered, Dominion battle lines collapsing. We underestimated them, Reyes said softly. They will reach the core systems. Yes. And your fleet. Reyes exhaled. 3 days out. Threxel's gaze locked onto him. You brought this. Reyes met it without flinching. No. But I can help you survive it. For the first time since striking him, Threxel looked small. The galaxy had just shifted again. And this time, humanity wasn't the unexpected threat. It was the only thing standing between the Dominion and extinction. By the 6th week, the Imperial War College was no longer an academy. It was a battlefield. Not in the way Threxel intended. Not with gravity fields or lethal toxins. But with ideas, calculations, human adaptability. Reyes walked the corridors like a ghost from another war, each step measured, each glance calculating. He didn't merely survive the exercises. He rewrote them. A simulation was projected, the Varelian border under siege. Cadets had to plan suppression, eliminate insubordination, maximize collateral fear. All the aliens chose firepower. Reyes did not. He mapped supply routes, calculated morale thresholds, identified corrupt commanders, and devised a plan that delivered medical aid, food, and water to the border colonies, under armed escort. When the simulation ended, the aliens gasped. You let them live? Threxel growled. You ignore protocol, discipline, consequences. Reyes shrugged. I ignore assumptions. Your assuming loyalty comes from fear. It doesn't. It comes from respect, from competence, from making sure your people survive. A crystalline observer quivered in approval. Fascinating, it whispered. That is weakness, Threxel hissed. And weakness leads to rebellion. Reyes leaned closer, calm as a predator. And the Dominion almost brought me here for punishment? For being human? I've survived worse than rebellion. I've survived betrayal, plague, and losing the people I swore to protect. I do not fight like you. I fight to prevent collapse. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? The room went silent. Even the aggressive reptilian cadets took a step back. Then came the twist. The alarms screamed. The Academy's perimeter shivered. Not a drill. Not a simulation. A fleet had breached the outermost defense grid. The alien instructors scrambled. Communication channels lit up with panic. The ships were not Dominion. Not human. Not catalogued in any known database. Organic. Unpredictable. Lethal. Impossible, Threxel muttered. No civilization moves this fast across uncharted sectors. Rhea's eyes narrowed. They follow patterns. They test weakness. And you? You invited me here, thinking you were studying humans. You were wrong. You were bait. Threxel's mandibles twitched. You brought them? No, Reyes said. I just know how to survive when things break. You are about to see what happens when an empire underestimates its student. Within the hour, Threxel realized the scope of the mistake. Every cadet who had mocked, ignored, or challenged Reyes now faced the same horrifying truth. The galaxy did not wait for protocol. The galaxy did not pause for pride. And human improvisation was more dangerous than any bioweapon, grav field trap, or neural disruptor. Reyes stood at the Academy's observation deck, staring into the unfolding chaos. He had not yet touched a weapon. He had not yet commanded a fleet. He had only taught, adapted, and waited. And now the Dominion realized. The man they thought they could intimidate, The human they assumed would bow had already rewritten the rules of engagement. Threxel stepped beside him, uneasily silent. "You are unlike any cadet we have ever trained," he said. Reyes didn't answer. He watched the projections flicker. He memorized the enemy movements. He calculated risk, opportunity, and advantage. "The Dominion is in danger," he said finally. "And if it survives, it will owe its life to humans. Not to luck. Not to technology. Not to fear." The instructor swallowed, realizing the bitter truth. Humanity did not just fight wars. Humanity reshaped them. And this one human, walking through the corridors of a venerable alien institution, had already done more than an entire fleet of officers ever could. In the shadows, cadets whispered. Species who had once scoffed at the human now feared him, envied him, and, most dangerous of all, respected him. Reyes turned back to Threxel, gray hair catching the artificial starlight. "If you want to survive this," he said, "you will listen. Not to your pride, not to your rituals, but to the human who just held your wrist without flinching." For the first time, the instructor felt small, not in body, not in training, but in perception. Because every empire, he realized, has a weakness, and sometimes the weakest-looking element, an old, retired human major, can be the deadliest. And the galaxy, in all its cold, indifferent expanse, was about to learn that lesson in fire and blood. The Dominion had underestimated humans. Again. By the time the first fleet arrived, Reyes had already anticipated every contingency, every tactic the aliens assumed would work. He didn't command through fear. He commanded through calculation, improvisation, and sheer unpredictability. The enemy ships descended like a storm, hulls twisting in ways no Dominion engineer could have predicted. Threxel barked orders, but the cadets faltered. They had trained for precision. They had trained for strength. They had not trained for a human who thought like chaos incarnate. Reyes' voice came through the comms, calm, measured, infuriatingly composed. "Shields overloading on the front line?" he asked. "Good. Divert all auxiliary power to dorsal arrays. Fire plasma into the vacuum between them. Use the turbulence to spin the next wave into debris." He didn't pause. He didn't hesitate. He treated carnage like calculus. Variables, outcomes, adjustments. The Dominion fleet watched in horror as their best ships were torn apart, not by superior technology, not by overwhelming numbers, but by a single human who had learned their tactics faster than they could anticipate. Threxel clenched his mandibles. "You're insane," he growled. "Maybe," Reyes said softly. "Or maybe I just survived your insanity long enough to know how it ends." On the academy decks, cadets fell silent. The simulation arenas, the endurance chambers, the sparring halls, they had been Reyes' classroom. And now, that classroom had turned into a live battlefield. Reyes moved with surgical precision. He exploited the arrogance of every Dominion commander. He turned their formation logic against them. He used debris as cover, enemy fire as a tool, and their fear as a weapon. Within hours, the attacking fleet lay in ruins. Broken ships spun in silent orbit, weapons offline, commanders screaming into open comms that carried nothing but static. Threxel stared at the reports, pale bioluminescence flickering like a dying flame. He began, but the words faltered. "I didn't strike first," Reyes said. "You did. You thought dominance would impress me. You thought fear would break me. You assumed humans play by your rules." He turned to the cadets, eyes scanning 42 species in the tiered amphitheater. "Look closely. That's the difference." Some whispered. Some quivered. All were learning a truth the Dominion had long ignored. Humans were not predictable. Humans did not simply fight. Humans adapted. Humans survived. And humans, when cornered, struck with surgical brilliance, and sometimes terrifying vengeance. Rhea's gray eyes met Threxel's. "Now there's a choice. You can rebuild, learn, adapt, or you can repeat your mistake. And I promise you, the next time, I won't be alone. For the first time, the instructor understood the cost of underestimating humanity. The cost was not just defeat. It was a profound, existential shock. An empire could crumble at the hands of patience, wit, and precision. And somewhere deep in Vega IV's ashes, survivors whispered stories of a human who had walked into an alien academy, caught a lethal strike with one hand, and turned the galaxy upside down without firing a single traditional weapon. Reyes left the command deck quietly, as he had arrived, unassuming, lethal, and unbreakable. The Dominion would recover, eventually. But they would never forget. They had met humanity at its worst. And humanity had shown them its best. The galaxy would never be the same.